It was a crisp autumn evening when a group of friends, Jake, Mia, Sam, and Lucy, decided to escape the city for a weekend of camping in the Whispering Pines forest. They set up camp near a clear, tranquil lake. The setting sun casting an orange glow over the landscape. Laughter and stories filled the air as they roasted marshmallows over the fire. As night fell, the atmosphere shifted. A thick fog rolled in, muffling their voices and dampening their laughter. Mia suggested they tell ghost stories, igniting a spark of curiosity. Jake began, recounting tales of a man who disappeared in the woods decades ago. His ghost said to wander, searching for something he lost. As the fire crackled, Lucy noticed something odd. The trees seemed to sway, whispering secrets among themselves. "Do you hear that?" she asked, peering into the darkness. The others shrugged it off, attributing it to the wind. Later, as they settled into their tents, a soft rustling sound emerged from the woods. Sam, feeling adventurous, unzipped his tent and stepped out. "I'll check it out," he said, flashlight in hand. The others hesitated, but decided to follow. They ventured deeper into the forest, the rustling growing louder. "Maybe it's just an animal," Mia suggested nervously, but something felt off. The air grew colder, and the whispers intensified, almost forming words. Suddenly, Sam halted. "Do you see that?" he whispered, pointing toward a flickering light in the distance. They followed it, curiosity overcoming their fear. As they approached, the light revealed a clearing filled with old, twisted trees and an ancient stone altar covered in moss. In the center stood a figure pale, with hollow eyes and an eerie smile. "Welcome," it whispered, voice like gravel. The friends froze, realization dawning. This was the spirit of the lost man, forever trapped in the woods. Panic set in. They turned to run, but the whispers grew louder, echoing their names. Jake, Mia, Sam, Lucy. It was as if the forest itself was alive, ensnaring them in a web of fear. As they sprinted back, branches snagged at their clothes, pulling them back as shadows danced in the corners of their vision. They stumbled through the underbrush, heartbeats racing, the figure looming ever closer, its laughter mingling with the whispers. Finally, they reached their campsite, breathless and terrified. They scrambled into their tents, hearts pounding. But the whispers didn't stop. They could hear them outside, circling their camp, beckoning them to come out. Mia peeked through the tent flap. The figure was there, illuminated by the dim glow of their campfire. Its smile widened, and it pointed toward the lake. "Join me," it hissed. They knew they had to escape. They gathered their things, adrenaline fueling their movements. As they packed, the whispers intensified, angry and desperate. "Stay with us," they echoed. In a frantic dash, they bolted through the forest, not stopping until they reached their car. As they drove away, the whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the sound of their racing hearts. They vowed never to return to Whispering Pines, forever haunted by the knowledge that some spirits never find peace and that the forest holds its secrets close. But as they drove, a chilling thought crossed their minds. What if the whispers followed them? And what if, one day, they answered? The air crackled with tension as the group of friends huddled around the campfire, the flames casting eerie shadows on their faces. They had been camping in the remote woods for days, enjoying the peace and solitude. But as the sun began to set, an unsettling feeling crept over them. "Did you hear that?" whispered Sarah, her voice barely audible above the crackling fire. The others strained their ears, but all they could hear was the wind rustling through the trees. "It's just the wind," said Mark, trying to sound confident. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She felt a presence watching them, something lurking in the darkness beyond the campfire's glow. As the night deepened, the shadows seemed to grow longer and more menacing. The friends huddled closer together, their fear palpable. Suddenly, a twig snapped in the distance. They all froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. "What was that?" whispered Emily, her voice trembling. No one answered. They were all too afraid to speak. Then, from the edge of the woods, a pair of glowing eyes appeared. They were large and menacing, and they seemed to be moving closer. The friends exchanged terrified glances. They knew they had to do something, but they were paralyzed with fear. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was tall and gaunt, with long skeletal fingers. Its face was obscured by the shadows, but its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. The friends screamed and scrambled to their feet, but it was too late. The figure lunged at them, its claws outstretched. In the chaos that followed, the friends were separated. Sarah found herself alone in the woods, the figure hot on her heels. She ran as fast as she could, but the figure was gaining on her. She could feel its breath on her neck, its claws reaching for her. Just as she thought she was going to be caught, she stumbled upon a hidden clearing. She dove into the bushes, hoping the figure wouldn't find her. She lay there, panting, her heart pounding in her chest. She closed her eyes, praying that the figure wouldn't find her. After what seemed like an eternity, the figure emerged from the woods. It looked around, its glowing eyes scanning the clearing. Then, it turned and walked away. Sarah let out a sigh of relief. She had escaped. But as she watched the figure disappear into the darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching her. She knew she would never forget that night in the woods. The fear, the terror, the feeling of being hunted. It was an experience that would stay with her forever. Alone in the woods, Emily set up her tent, eager for a weekend of solitude. She loved nature's serenity, but as night fell, an unsettling silence enveloped the campsite. Sitting by the crackling campfire, she tried to shake the feeling of being watched. The trees loomed like dark sentinels around her, their branches creaking softly in the wind. Ignoring her unease, she began to tell herself stories, imagining she was with friends, sharing ghost tales. As she spoke, the wind shifted, carrying a faint whisper that sent shivers down her spine. Help, it seemed to call, but she dismissed it as her imagination. She stoked the fire and focused on the flickering flames. Just then, the whisper grew louder, more desperate. "Help us." The voice echoed through the trees, chilling her to the bone. Emily stood up, heart racing. "Hello," she called, but only silence answered. Feeling drawn to the sound, she grabbed her flashlight and stepped into the darkness. The beam sliced through the blackness, revealing twisted branches and underbrush. The whispers guided her deeper into the woods, a haunting melody that filled her with dread. Suddenly, she found herself in a small clearing. A decayed campsite lay before her, rusted pots, broken chairs, and remnants of an old fire. The air grew colder, and the whispers turned into agonizing cries. Panic surged through her. "Get out," a voice yelled, but it was too late. The trees seemed to close in, shadows moving just beyond her sight. Emily turned to run, but the path back vanished, the woods shifting round her. Breathless and terrified, she stumbled through the darkness, branches clawing at her as if trying to hold her back. The cries grew louder, echoing in her mind. Help us, help us. Finally, she burst back into her campsite, collapsing next to the dying fire. It flickered weakly, casting long shadows that danced menacingly. The whispers faded, but an oppressive silence replaced them. As dawn broke, Emily packed her gear, glancing back at the woods that had swallowed her sanity. She left, vowing never to return. Years later, the whispers still echoed in her mind. A chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed, especially when you're all alone.